So welcome everyone, my name is Shamil. I'm on the Career Services team here at the School of Ed. This is part 1 to our Teacher ePortfolio series. We have additional events coming up. We hope that you'll take advantage of those as well. Special thank you to Liz Kolb, who's actually going to be leading our session today. And so I'll hand it over to her.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I do want to give a shout out to Laura and Shamil because they are really working hard to make sure that they are connecting you with good job opportunities. So please take full advantage of those resources. And even after you leave, I know that they have been helpful to our alumni with reaccreditation and other questions that have been coming up. So great resources that we have here. All right. So thank you everyone for coming. I know this is an incredibly busy time, so I don't want to take more time than is needed, but I want to make sure just to get you all the information that might be useful. So you can grab the slides by that tiny URL. I'm pretty sure I shared it, but now that I'm thinking I may not have, so just let me know if I didn't, and I will share that out. The reason why we wanted to do this is because more and more we have been hearing from schools and districts and admins that the way that they have been connecting with their employees and their teachers, do you need me to, okay, is through social networks, online portfolios, kind of a online presence that teachers has been helpful in the job interview process in different ways. So whether it's through you being more involved in social networking or you developing an ePortfolio of some sort, they've been finding that useful in trying to understand who you are as a teacher in the classroom and how you want to connect with others. So just before I jump into ePortfolios, a big reminder is please make sure that you are taking full advantage of things that are happening online when it comes to teaching and learning, your level of comfort, of course. So don't get involved in something if you're not comfortable, but at least go in and lurk and see what's going on in different places. And in particular, start to think about organizations. So everyone has different fields they're interested in, whether it's English, social studies, English language learners. There's all sorts of different areas that you might be interested in. There's an organization for just about everything. And it is definitely important to get involved in those organizations and to show school districts that you're interested in more than just your particular classroom, that you're interested in being part of this great professional community and you want to contribute to it. And there's also a lot of wonderful learning opportunities from these organizations. For example, just to plug one that I'm part of, which is McCall, the upper right-hand corner there. That's the Michigan, Tech Users in Education. It's 100% free to become a member. So you don't have to pay any money, you become a member, there's an online community you can be part of. You can connect with all sorts of K-12 teachers and leaders through all of those online communities and through those resources. So it's a great place to start because it doesn't cost you any money. Some of them you do have to pay money to be a member. Some have kind of a free entry as long as you're a student teacher at an institution. But if you can't become a member, follow them on Twitter or follow them on Facebook and start to kind of see what their organization is all about. Often they have, white papers and press releases and all sorts of information about the latest happenings in that particular area. So pick a couple and start to think about how you can become involved, or even if it's just lurking and figuring out what's going on, because more than likely you will be asked about your professional experiences as well as your interest in connecting with other professionals, how you're going to grow as a teacher. These are great places to learn about opportunities to grow. A lot of the admins in K-12, a lot of the teachers are involved in these organizations. So they will be familiar when you talk about these organizations. A lot of them go to the annual conferences, attend webinars, that type of thing. So just plugging that you want to make sure that you are thinking about going beyond your particular classroom. And just one other thing to really think about is thinking about your digital presence online. If you've been in my classes, we talk about it a lot, I know, so I'm not going to bore you with the details. But again, just Google yourself, check yourself out, make sure there's nothing on there that you're worried about or that might be inappropriate. I recently Googled myself, and I found that I don't want to call it an organization, but a company was selling a part of my dissertation as a paper that people could download and purchase and buy. Obviously without my permission, and I had to go in and almost kind of threaten the company with a lawsuit to get them to take that down. But they did take it down, but I had no idea unless I just kind of went through it and did a quick Google of myself to find out that that was happening. So make sure that you are checking, because the one thing I do know is that most school districts will do a Google search of you. They will, maybe not right away in the initial interview, but eventually down the line, they are going to be seeing who you are and checking you out. If you're on places like Twitter or Facebook, just make sure that the profile picture is clean, and make sure that you are connected with, professional and appropriate people in the field. So just keep that in mind. I have in the slides just some Twitter feeds of teachers, so you can kind of peruse through them, see how they're using Twitter to connect with other educators and to share things about their classroom. We're not going to go into those details today, but I just wanted to say they're in the slides. Again, that's all kind of part of this professional profile that people will be Googling and checking you out about. So, and just kind of, I guess, one other plug or one other thing to think about is that I already mentioned, kind of joining organizations and getting more involved. But the other piece that I do want to mention is that there's a lot of grant opportunities out there as well. And they're not just for in-service teachers. Pre-service teachers also can take advantage of some of these grants. But keep in mind places like Grant Wrangler, Get Ed funding. There's also grants through McCall. You can get up to $1,500 for technology in your classroom. They're actually pretty easy to get. So there are opportunities out there, and they're things that just kind of keep in your back pocket and bookmark them. All right, so let's jump into ePortfolios and take a little bit of a deeper dive here. And part of this series and our goal for this series is that we're going to kind of introduce what you want to start thinking about collecting. And I know that Laura put together a nice handout for you kind of based on the slides so that you can start going through your checklist. Now that you're getting involved in lead teaching, this is the time to really start to collect things that you're going to need for your portfolio. And then just starting to think about building it. In March, we're going to just have a walk-in session. Myself and two other ed tech instructors, Kevin Upton and Pete Pasquet. We will be there for you to walk in if you want to work on your portfolio, if you have questions about it. That's the time to just really get going on it. You obviously can work on your own too. So it's a walk-in if you want to take advantage of that. And then in April, we are bringing in a bunch of administrators from K-12 schools all over. They are going to do, if you have your portfolio ready, we're going to send it to them hopefully a week before. And they will do an evaluation of it. They'll look through it, and they'll sit down just with you and talk to you about what they're seeing in the portfolio, what they like, what they recommend changing, kind of a mini interview in a sense. So we'll have a sign up for that as well. So first of all, just keep in mind, you'll hear a lot of things about ePortfolio. So we want to kind of go through some of the rumors. There's a lot of talk that, don't build an ePortfolio because nobody's going to look at your ePortfolio. There's some truth to that and some not truth to that, I guess you can say. The truth is the ePortfolio can be extremely helpful in the get for the interview. So if you're interested in a particular school district, you're interested in getting into and getting an interview, having a link to an ePortfolio on your resume can be really helpful. I've had principals tell me, we ended up interviewing this former student of yours because we looked at that ePortfolio link. There was nothing super impressive on the resume, but we took a quick look at the ePortfolio and we were wowed by it, so we brought them in. So it's definitely something that can get you into the interview, and often in the interview it will help you prepare for it, because almost everything that you put in an ePortfolio are things that you're going to have questions about in the interview. Whether it's your classroom management, whether it's how you develop a lesson plan, how you work with different resources in the classroom, your kind of philosophy or approach to teaching in the classroom. When you get that question of, if I walk in your classroom, what would I see? You would be able to answer that very easily because you spent some time putting together your portfolio. Also, they often will ask you questions about your portfolio, which is nice because it's familiar to you. You know that really well. So you don't feel as though the questions are coming from left field. It also can be helpful if you're looking at schools that are not local. So if you're interested in teaching overseas, if you're interested in teaching in another state, this is one way to help you better connect with them, and they can kind of see who you are a little bit more. And of course, over time, you will have to get recertified, so you will be able to update your portfolio. You can also definitely extend the interview as well. So it isn't always used in the interview, although I've heard lately more and more from teachers who are pre-service teachers who are bringing in like their iPad or even their mobile device and sharing it on that when questions come up about different pieces of their portfolio or things that are in their portfolio that they can show off, rather than making a separate paper copy portfolio. So, okay, I have a lot of examples up here. But I wanted to share a few examples of some things in the portfolio. So let me pull up, let's see. I'll pull up Claire's. All right, so this is from an elementary undergrad from last year. She ended up getting a job. And she used Weebly to create her portfolio. Now, a couple of things I want to point out from these portfolios, but I'm going to kind of just navigate through it so you can take a look and tell me what you kind of notice in the portfolio. What do you like? What might you think is something that you don't really like, just from an eyeball effect? So just from an aesthetic look. Kind of going through here, let's see. There's her resume. Let's see, she's got her philosophy. Takes her back to the home page. So this page is titled, if you didn't see it, What Makes Me Unique? Got her lesson plans in here. There's one for math. All right, what did you notice? What did you like about the portfolio in looking at it? What was kind of pleasing to your eye?
I like how the resume section just looked like a paper resume. Like it looked exactly how it probably would look on paper.
Yeah,
it
so
it wasn't weird and colorful and like
it was just kind of, she took the word copy and embedded it right into the portfolio, so it still looks professional. Doesn't have a bunch of flowers growing out of it or anything.
It's easy to navigate, and the colors are like set. It's not random or sporadic.
Yeah. So it has kind of a nice template to it. You know you're in the portfolio every time you click on a page. It feels like a clean website, easy to navigate. It tells you exactly what you're going to see on the page. What about, yeah.
I like this what makes me unique section.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So that's one of my favorite things to have in a portfolio, and it's something that I don't think any other schools ever do, but I highly recommend it because everything else in this portfolio, teaching philosophy, resume, lesson plans, administrators expect to see that. You know, they expect to see that. But when they see something that says, what makes me unique? I mean, that's telling them, what makes me stand out? What am I going to bring to the school? Because often they want to know, what can you contribute that's going to be new and different and unique? And, you know, in Claire's, I can't remember, I think she had something about coaching. So here she's saying, you know, I have these coaching skills. I'm involved with Young Life, so maybe I can start up a club. I really like I created these math labs. I could do that in the classroom. These are all these great things that I can bring to your school that I have these specific talents for. So they may involve, you know, sports. They may involve, you know, chess skills or more academic type skills, different types of interests. interests. There's another teacher who had one where they talked about their love of art and Spanish. They were an elementary teacher, but they weave those two together in a project in their student teaching, and she ended up getting hired because of that What Makes Me Unique page, because they were so excited by that. So I think that's something to really consider. Really think about what makes you stand out. What do you do that's unique and maybe different than what other people do? If you don't know, ask your field instructor, ask your mentor teacher, because they've been doing this a while. They might have some good ideas about what they've seen you do. It might be the way that you do center time, or the way that you conduct a kind of Socratic lecture that's really interesting and unique. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm a world famous soccer player. It can be something more subtle and simple, but still something that you can bring to the classroom. So really try to think about what can you kind of show off, because when they do ask you that question, what are you going to bring to our school district? What can you do that these 200 other teachers that are applying for this job can't do? And then you can go right to that and share that. Anything else that anyone noticed? Yeah, so she just used her first and last name, .weebly.com. She didn't want to pay for a URL, so she just used the free version. But that's about your comfort too. Some people don't want to put their name out on a URL. Other people have no problem doing that. She's doing it in a very professional way, so I don't think of this as something that's going to contribute to a negative digital footprint in any way. But it is easy to remember. So if she meets a principal at an academic convention or something, she can just say, oh yeah, it's just my first and last name .weebly.com, rather than saying, I love teaching or something along those lines. All right, I'm going to bring up one more. This is a secondary one, just to have another one to take a look at. Her last name is Hansen, so she has Miss Hansen up there. And she also used Weebly for this, and she also here embedded her resume. Now this is her resume page, so let me go back to her home page. So that's not where it starts. This is her home page. So here she has a quote. A picture of her, so a little bit about herself. Relevant experience. Let's see. So this is a little bit of kind of what makes her unique or stand out. So she's a social studies teacher, so she's talking very specifically about some things that she's been involved with social studies. And then if I keep scrolling down here, she's talking about her student teaching, the Rounds Project. If you're secondary, you're probably familiar with that. Organization she's part of. And then here's one of her students. So it's a little bit about who she taught. These are encouraging words from her students, her farewell from her students, some student feedback. She has lots of student feedback in there. And then lesson plans. So she embedded some lesson plans, some examples of student work. All right, any thoughts about this portfolio? And I know I'm scrolling quickly, but keep in mind, most admins will look very quickly at portfolios. They're not going to sit there for an hour and take apart each piece of it.
I like the books. Yeah, I like that.
The books with the, yeah, and having the Michigan, the M on it.
I have a question though, Liz. What's your opinion on having the same pages that heading on every single one?
I think that you want to be consistent. So it's important to be consistent. If you have this same layout, but you use a different picture on each one that represents whatever your topic is, I think that's perfectly fine. I just wouldn't change the layout that you have on your pages. So I don't think you have to have the same picture, essentially, but I would keep it with a very similar layout, keeping it simple.
The student work aspect too, just so she has that section, even if you don't have time to navigate through all of it, just showing that she took the time to put it up there, I think speaks a lot too.
Yeah, and sometimes, remember, this is a little bit of a mind game. That this is not where we're going to put up your Athena video and show your kind of mediocre teaching experience. You are a rock star according to these portfolios. So you want this portfolio to say you're a rock star. You don't want any mediocrity up there. So put the student work up there, make it look as though every time I'm collecting student work and I'm analyzing every single piece of it, whether you are or not all the time, you really want it to look that way. I don't think she needed to have 20 pieces of student work. I think she could have picked out a couple that really showed how well they were meeting the learning goals, would have been fine. Even better if she could have put up student work where she had assessed it and we could see how she assesses, taking off student names and all identifiers.
I like the way she put the feedbacks from the students in there, like to show that she has a good reputation of students.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more you can get, I call those informal references, the more you can get informal references, the better. So they're expecting to see a reference from your mentor teacher, they're expecting to see a reference from your field instructor, maybe a university professor, but if you throw some references in there they don't expect, the school principal, the assistant principal, another teacher in the department who you didn't student teach in their classroom, the resource room teacher because she was in and out of your classroom and saw you teach, a parent who wrote a lovely note about the work that you did with their child. A student who wrote in the corner of their test, "Thank you so much, this was such a great lesson, I had such a good time." That's really invaluable. Hold on to that, take a picture of it and put it in your portfolio because that says that even when you didn't ask for a reference, you were valued and they took the time to show how valuable you were to them. So those references sometimes can actually be almost more meaningful than when you had to ask for the letter of reference.
Like, I have a quick question. Like, I did some long-term substitution in high school, and I have a referral letters from the teachers there.
Yes.
I think it's right thing to put in there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The more people who've seen your teaching and can say good things about it, the better. So even now, as you're moving into teaching, in your lead teaching, when you're at the point where you feel like this is going to be a great lesson, this is a good one, invite some other teachers, invite the principal, invite whoever can give you kind of some kind of written evaluation to come in and watch and ask them kindly if they'll write something up about what they saw or what they liked about your teaching that you could put in your portfolio. So don't wait until week 12 to do this. As you're in the process, do it in the process so that you can get it in the moment. And again, same thing with parents. If parents are in there volunteering their time and they've seen you teach and you've had a good rapport with them, ask them if they're willing to do that. Absolutely. So get as many of those as you can. Anything you noticed in here that maybe you weren't as drawn to?
I felt like some of the videos and things at the end, that one page just seemed really long, and then it almost was like, did she just put a high school clip of her swim meet in there? I don't know, like what that, like I don't know how relevant that was or what that was actually from, but.
Yeah.
She actually coaches,
Oh, she
team
coaches.
coaches. She was my kid's swim team coach. She's been there for a while. I think she really coaches a lot in a variety of, she's like a big deal.
Yeah, she's absolutely wonderful. I love Murphy is fantastic, and she's a great teacher. She's a great coach. But I do agree with Jess's observation that this is a little bit long. So my
Yeah.
no. Yeah, it's what she does. Yeah, it's part of her kind of, I can contribute this, and she's very good at that. But I do agree that this is kind of a long page, and the rule of thumb is 20 minutes or less. I should be able to get through your whole portfolio, read all of your portfolio in 20 minutes or less, not read one page of it. And this might take 20 minutes to kind of scroll through and look through and read. So I would recommend, splicing this, in half or more. I would take 75% out and really just highlight the really important pieces, the things that really make her unique, and I would separate these sections too. There's a lot going on in this section. There's organizations, there's coaching experience, there's some about student teaching. There's almost too much under one menu bar, and most administrators will start scrolling and then go, oh, it's too much information, and never even get to the bottom. The other thing I would recommend is I think there were some video clips in here, and she's showing the state meet, which is pretty cool. So you might keep that in there because that is pretty cool, but I would reconfigure how it's laid out so it's not such a long page, because probably nobody even saw that. But in general, I do not recommend videos. I know this program is all about videos, but you've had enough video work, so no videos in your ePortfolio. The reason why is because most people, when they see a video, do what we've done with videos. They're really critical. So they will look for everything you do wrong in that video. Even if it's the most amazing lesson you've ever taught, if there's one student whose head's turned a little bit away from you, that's what they're going to notice. And they'll say, oh, they can't get the attention of all the students. But pictures can be really powerful in a much more positive way. So choosing pictures that show the students being very engaged, even if it's a little bit of a false engagement because maybe they turn their heads right after the picture, nobody really knows that. So the pictures can say a lot more. So if I go back to Claire's here, notice in this picture, and actually it's a hard one to see because she has the words in front of it, but this is Claire over here on the right, and if you can kind of see, she's looking at the student who has looks like a whiteboard or some kind of board over there, and they're all kind of, and she's focused in on this particular student. So that's a pretty good picture that she's using because she's in the teaching moment, she's working with the student, she's showing that she's focused in there. So you want to think about showing pictures where the students are engaged and you're engaged with the students. So you need to take lots of pictures, you just do. And ask your mentor teacher if they are willing to take pictures, give them your cell phone, whatever it might be, and ask them to just take lots of pictures. When your field instructor's in there, ask them to take pictures while they're watching you teach. Usually they are more than happy to do that for you so that you can get some good pictures in there. Let's see. Let me see if I can find some other good picture examples. Oh, Danielle has some good ones in here, I think. So here's another picture that I like. Danielle's graduated quite a few years ago now, but I've always liked this picture because it looks like she is doing a great lesson. The students are very attentive. You have the student in the back that's kind of raising their hand. All eyes are focused on what she is doing there in the picture itself. Let's see. Lori's. So the other thing you want to notice is, and this is actually, you can't see very well, but I think that's Lori right in there in the corner. But notice she has pictures of the students doing a variety of different types of learning and work. So sometimes she's doing whole group instruction, sometimes she's doing more of a one-to-one, small group, science investigations, math manipulatives. So also trying to get a variety of different types of teaching that you do in the classroom is really important as well. Let's see. So, and then in here, this is a nice picture of Lori working with the students. Again, it seems like everyone's attentive and focused on the work that they're doing. So to me, that gives me a positive impression of Lori and working with the students. Now, if that picture had the students all looking in different directions, I might have a different impression. But the more you can kind of use pictures as evidence for different things that you're talking about in, how I teach, my approach to teaching, what you'll see in my classroom, the more positive that your portfolio will come off to the administrators. couple other things to just kind of pay attention to in some of these portfolios. Notice that, for example, Lori in here, she highlighted certain words, you know, so social emotional needs, culturally and academically diverse. So she chose specific words to highlight because she was aware that there are people that will look at her portfolio and literally just kind of eyeball it, but not really read it. So she wanted certain things to stand out. You know, she had worked in the IT industry, so she wanted that to stand out as a special skill that she can bring into the schools. So if there are certain things that you do in your teaching practice that you want to stand out, make those words stand out in the portfolio, because those are things that they will notice if they don't read every single word that you pieced up in the portfolio. Another thing that you'll notice is that some of our former interns put in quotes from field instructors or from mentor teachers or from professors or parents, and these can be really powerful. These are things you can grab from your evaluations that your field instructors give you. If they say, wow, I can't believe, you know, the work ethic that Lori has. I've never seen anything like that. Make that stand out because you want the school district to know that. So pull that out, because even if they get a copy of the reference letters or the evaluations, again, they might skim it. So pull out the pieces that really make you stand out and make you unique. Put it on your homepage as kind of the big, you know, starting quote that, you know, this is somebody who, you know, does XYZ that's so amazing in the classroom, because they'll notice that. They'll pay attention to that. But they might not pay attention if it's lost in all of the text. So pull those things out. And of course, you want to ask permission. But once you have permission, you know, pull them out and put them up there. So here, Lori also put in what we were talking about, those informal pieces. So here, she just kind of grabbed, you know, she copied, you know, some notes that were written to her from the students or the parents, and, you know, again, can be very meaningful. Now, I'm going to go to Daniela's, and I don't want you to get too overwhelmed by it, but I think she did a really nice job. You can scale it back a lot here. But one of the things that she did, I'm going to go to her literacy one, the way she set this up was nice. So she talked first about how she approaches literacy, and she talked about kind of her reading and writing workshops and the way that she approaches that. And then if we scroll down, she has the different practices that she does in her writing workshop for feature articles. And then she has the evidence over here that goes with that. So this is something that I think is very impressive, and I've heard from a couple of principals I showed it to that they were extremely impressed with this as well too. So she used this format for all of her different content areas, if you're elementary and if you're secondary, for your different fields within your field, is a nice way to set it up. And then she did the same thing with a few others. Now, she also pulled out a few sections that were really meaningful to her. She had an ELL certification, and she was really interested in working with English language learners. So she pulled that out as a special section. So if there's something that you really are passionate about as far as a demographic you want to work with, or tools or resources, or an approach to teaching, maybe you're really passionate about you know, Project Lead the Way, or you know, some kind of curriculum, you can pull that out and say, like, this is the approach, you know, that I would like to take or to focus on. And then she again used some really nice pictures as evidence for what she had talked about. Now there's a couple other portfolios I put in here that that are from Wix, which is another tool that you can use to make portfolios, another great website tool. Now, it's your choice here. So this is Jessica, and she did a nice job on her portfolio as well. You'll notice that people either choose to put a kind of a profile shot of themselves, or they choose to put a shot of themselves teaching in the classroom. My preference is to have a shot of yourself teaching in the classroom where we can see who you are well, but that you're engaged in working with students. I think that comes across a little bit better, but you can also choose to do a profile shot. If you do a profile shot, I recommend making it as professional as possible. So, you know, have your Michigan lanyard on, or your Michigan shirt on, or be really dressed up almost like with a business suit type top, so that it does look very professional. And again, here, notice with Jessica, she pulled out some different text in her portfolio. So Wix works a little bit differently. It's a little bit more of an animated website. So you'll see a little bit more animation that comes out of it. All right, so there are lots of portfolios you can peruse, you can take a look at, you can see what you like and don't like about them. But I'm going to kind of just talk through the sections that you really want to be thinking about. I also have a link in here that I call kind of the evaluation tool. And it's just something that these are some of the things that you want to notice or pay attention to. The initial impression. So ask somebody to take a look at your portfolio when it's done. I'm happy to do it. You can always send it my way. Feel free to just send it to me through email. Even if you're not one of my students, I'm more than happy to do it. And of course, we are going to have the admins that come in and they can give you that initial impression too. But you want the impression to just be a click through, and it should be, oh, this is great. It's really aesthetically pleasing. I'm excited about this teacher. That's the impression you want it to have. The images, pay close attention. Is the teacher smiling? Do they look like they're enjoying what they're doing? Are they engaging with students? Are they always just doing the same thing in every picture? In Danielle's, she's often standing by the board. So as much as I love her portfolio, I would have loved to have seen her in different environments with the student. The text in the portfolio, keep in mind, 20-minute rule. So if I literally wrote, you know, a 3-page philosophy of my teaching, nobody's going to read that. You need to cut that philosophy down to a couple of paragraphs at most. So whatever you did in your class where you wrote the philosophy, take 75% and throw it away, and just keep the most meaningful pieces. If there is something that you really, well, I'll get to it. Lesson plans, no more than 4 is the rule of thumb. I don't recommend putting in an entire unit. I know you do a lead teaching unit, but nobody's going to read that. So instead, pull out your 4 best lessons, your top lessons, whether they're all in, if you're elementary, whether they're all in the same content area or not, doesn't matter. If you are secondary, if they're all an economics lesson, that's okay if those are your best lessons. So don't worry about having to put your entire unit in there. Nobody's going to read that. And your lesson plans, again, I know you have to write really long lesson plans for us because we do that to you. We want you to really think about what you're doing. But in a portfolio, you'll notice most of the interns pared their lessons down to 2 pages, and maybe with some images to support, you know, with student work or pictures of you teaching the lesson. So you want to pare it down. And again, I'm happy to help you pare it down. We can do that in the workshop in March too, if you're struggling with how to do that. And also, you really want to think about, if I were hiring, would I want to hire this teacher? If I was a parent, would I want this teacher to teach my child? So really try to look at it from that lens. Share it with other people. Ask people to take a look at it. Ask your mentor teacher to look at it. Ask other teachers in the lunchroom to look at it. So the more eyes you can get on it, the better. Okay. All right, so the 3 websites that are typically used are on your handout. You can use a different website. It's perfectly fine. These are just easy because they're template-based and they're free. But you can definitely use whatever you would like to use. Sections and pages to think about. You don't have to have all these sections, but these are ones that tend to work well in the portfolio. The first one is having some kind of teaching philosophy or your goals. Again, this is not like in the class where we ask you to write the philosophy. Keep it short. Keep it to the point. Feel free to focus less on these, you know, I like Piaget and I like Vygotsky. You can focus less on that. less theoretical, and it can be much more personal to you. So feel free to tell a story. This is why I wanted to become a teacher. This is my background, or this is what I'm interested in. If there is a certain demographic that you want to teach in and you'll only teach in that demographic because that's your passion, that's perfectly fine. You can put it out there. If you're willing to take anything that's out there, then don't put in there, I really prefer to teach in X, Y, and Z, if you're willing to take a job somewhere else. So be careful about that. And instead of doing a whole philosophy, you could definitely do bullet points. That's perfectly fine in this. It's fine also to put it together as a poem, or sometimes people will start with a quote, a famous quote, or a quote from their teaching evaluations. Professional credentials, make sure you include those. Your CV or your resume, again, you want to embed it. Don't have it as a download. Nobody's going to download and open it up. So anything you download, assume nobody's ever going to look at that. So have everything embedded as much as possible. Tools like Weebly and Wix have a tool where you can embed right in there, so that's kind of nice and easy. You know, some people will actually kind of copy and paste their whole resume into a page, and that's fine too. Also, whatever else you might be willing to share. So especially at the secondary level, I know a lot of schools are interested in what coursework you took in your field. So I was a social studies teacher, so you know they wanted to know, do you have any knowledge of East Asian civilizations, because that's what we need someone to teach. So if you want to share the courses that you've taken, you can share those. You can share your transcripts, just take out any identifiers like social security numbers or anything like that. But also you can put in there, if you have your, you'll get a coupon, I can't remember what it's called, but you'll get something that says you're going to get your teaching certificate in the mail, but it's just not there yet. You've been approved for it, so you might want to put that in your portfolio just to let them know that you can hire me because I am getting it, it's in the mail, it's coming. So anything like that can actually be helpful because some districts absolutely need to know that you're a guarantee. So anything that you can do to just make it easier for them in the hiring process. Achievements, so this is what we kind of saw with a few of the examples. You absolutely can use things, you know, from high school if it's a real standout. You know, if you were the national chess champion, I think it's worth putting in there because that definitely makes you stand out. If, you know, you just really like your English class in high school, I would skip that. But also just anything where you have some kind of achievement. It can be athletic, it can be academic, it can be social emotional, just different things that you have been able to do that stand out. And again, if you feel like you don't have anything, then just don't put that section in there. Nobody will know. Best lesson plans. No more than 4. As I mentioned, pick your best. Pictures, pictures, pictures. If you know going into a lesson that this is going to be a winner, and of course we never really know, but we hope. If you think it's going to be a winner, document it, not with video, with pictures. If you have students that you can assign to be the photographer for the day, do that if you think a student would enjoy doing that in your class. Any way that you can grab those pictures. And then document different pieces of it. It's great to see student products. It's great to see them working on the process of things. If you're doing things on technology, take screenshots. If students are going to take home their diorama that they made, take a few pictures of it so you have a copy of what they've done. No videos. And make sure that if you do kind of evaluate a lesson or give feedback on lessons and you want to share how you do it because you think you do a nice job assessing, please do that because people will be interested to see how you assess and evaluate. Those are questions that are asked more and more just because of the way that evaluation and assessment is happening in schools. Creating a classroom community is another thing to keep in mind. So this question happens a lot more at the elementary level, but it does happen at the secondary level as well. How do you develop a sense of community in your classroom? What are things that you do, different moves that you make? So document it with pictures if you have certain routines that you do in your classroom. If you set up a friendship bulletin board, take pictures of that. Show what you're doing. Just the different things that you are doing in your classroom to help manage or to help set up that classroom community. Parent communication. Absolutely, schools want to know how you're communicating with parents. This is kind of a must at the elementary level. There's an expectation that you will have a give and take with parents. At the secondary level, it's a bonus if they see it, because they don't often see it in portfolios, that you are really working hard to bring parents into kind of the triad of the student, teacher, parent relationship. So if there are things you're doing, if you hadn't thought about it, maybe consider it and think about sending home a newsletter, or having some kind of blog or some way to communicate back and forth with parents. And professional references. So we already kind of talked about this, but again, start asking now. So don't wait, and I know from someone who's written many reference letters, I prefer to have a little bit of time to write it, and I'll write you a much better one if you ask me now, rather than 2 days before I have to send it off. So start asking people now. If you have been working with a teacher, if you have been working with a principal or parent or a professor, someone for a while now, and you have a good rapport with them, there's no reason why you have to wait until April 30th to ask for a reference letter. Now, obviously, your mentor teacher, your field instructor, you're going to want to wait a little bit longer. But there are other people also from past employment or current employment that you can probably ask now. You don't have to wait. So start collecting those things now. And again, those unsolicited ones, definitely be on the lookout for those. And professional development, I mentioned this earlier, but anytime you can show that you are interested in more than your classroom is a good thing. So if you have opportunities to attend conferences, if you have opportunities to attend PD in the school district, even going to the faculty meetings on Wednesdays after school is something that helps for you to stand out. So different ways that you're getting involved. If you join some of those professional organizations that we talked about before, put that up, that you're a member, that you're interested in learning more. This is something that you're passionate about. And then, of course, the unique features. So we talked about that with, I think, Claire's portfolio. What makes you unique? What will make you stand out? So think about that, and think about a way that you can present it as a real benefit to the school. And they're gonna really want to, because you have this unique feature that nobody else can bring to the school. Just some do nots. I know we're not supposed to say do not, but just some do nots. Don't make it too long and too big, not too many words. The lesson plans, don't make them too big. Everything should be short, concise, to the point, and make sure that people are not overwhelmed by too much text and writing on the page, because again, when you open it up and you see just a bunch of text, often it's going to be skipped over. So make sure you do have pictures to accent the things you're talking about, because even if they don't read the text, they'll notice the images. They'll notice those words that you highlight that will stand out. Permission forms is an absolute. I have a copy of the permission form. If you do not have it, I know Mary has it too, and Kevin has it for the secondary, but I will send it. Can we send it out to the list? Okay, so we'll do that. We'll just send you the email copy of the form. So if you are going to use pictures on your portfolio of students, and students' faces, if it's their backs, it's okay. But if it's students' faces and we can identify them, then we need to get special permission from their parents for that. So some teachers have handled that by just giving it to every parent in their classroom. And if you're in secondary, choose the classroom where you're going to take the pictures, so that you don't have to give it to every single class of students. And then if you don't get permission forms back from some parents, just make sure that those students are not in the pictures, or you're able to take them out of the pictures.
Is the form on your letterhead? Do you know? Is it on letterhead? It is. Okay.
So we'll make sure we get that out, because the form you have signed to do your research, do your video, does not cover it. So this is different. And another way you can do it, if for some reason you don't have the form, you can also email. You can send the parent a picture and say, is it okay if I use this in my professional portfolio? And get an email back and save the email.
That's a different form than the one you need to use student work.
Yes, it is a completely different form, yes. So we will make sure we get that form to you. All right, any other questions?
Previously we were saying, talk about it was like evaluation and something else. I'm trying to remember, was that like about lesson plans, just like job
Yes.
creation of lesson plans. Is that self-evaluation or
Good
like for
question.
mentor teacher?
Yeah, so good question. So what I was referencing was how you evaluate the students and assess the students,
Oh, it's just
not yourself. If you want to share that you do a lot of, reflective thinking and self-evaluation, that's not a bad thing.
Okay.
But that wasn't what I was referring to in there.
Okay.
That could just make you unique. All right. So the next steps, as we mentioned, in March, the beginning of March, we have the walk-in workshop. So if you want to come with some stuff, we can kind of help you piece it together. Or if you've started working on it, you just want to get some feedback, we can do that too. You can always email me what you're working on, and I can give you some feedback. I'm happy to do that. And I bet your field instructors would also be more than happy to do that as well. And then in April is when we have our kind of one-to-one with the administrators. And I know we'll have a sign-up.
We'll email out details about how you sign up to get your portfolio reviewed and everything.
But it does mean you have to have a portfolio done. So.
You're committing to
Right, exactly. They're coming all the way to campus.
The March meeting is on the 9th.
It's on the
Yeah,
9th,
is it the 9th? Yep.
And then I think it's April 13th.
Okay.
Yes, I
It's
think you're
2
correct.
Thursdays.
Thank you, Laura. I couldn't remember when I was reading.
So that's after the job fair on the 6th, is that okay, or should we have it ready to go for the 6th?
The job fair is April 6th.
Yes, the job fair is April 6th, so should we have our ePortfolio good to go?
It's probably a good idea. If you're going to put the link on the resume to your portfolio, then you want to have it ready to go. And if you're bringing in maybe your iPad or your phone to kind of show it off, you want to have it ready to go. Like I said, you're more than welcome to send it to me before the 13th if you want me to take a look at it. But the admins won't see it until the 13th or a few days before they'll look at it.
You can schedule appointments with Shamil and I too. We're all happy to help look at stuff. I know some people even are going on interviews a little bit, so.
Right, especially if they're doing international and teaching in some other states, there are some interviews already kind of happening. So yes, yeah, it's a team effort here. Are there any other questions that anyone has? Well, I know Tech Services recorded this so that you can watch, and also you should be able to grab the slides. Did anyone try to grab the slides? Let me go back. That is the short URL, and it has all the links to all those kind of sample portfolios that you can draw from as well. Let me know if you can't access it. Okay.
We're gonna, Shamil and I will stick the handout in Edwards so that they can access all the portfolios and the checklist.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping by. I know you are really busy, so we appreciate your time, and our goal is to help you get a good job. So we are your champion, and Laura has an announcement.
Speaking of jobs, Shamil and